the design team. Next slide. Thank you. Welcome to our virtual public meeting. To begin, we will review some basic controls to help you participate virtually on this platform. Please note this is an open meeting and as required by DC Code 2-578, this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. The video file with both audio and video will be shared on DDOT's YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/DDOT-videos within 7 days after the meeting has ended. This meeting is being live streamed to DDOT's Facebook page. You can find that at facebook.com/DDOT-DC. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not ask to speak. You may enter any questions or comments in the Q&A, which we will review in the next few slides. If you need technical assistance during this meeting, please call 202-997-8354. Next slide. Using WebEx, audio and video. Everyone is on mute tonight. You cannot unmute yourself. We can unmute you during the Q&A and comment period. This helps us ensure the meeting runs smoothly and there are no auditory disruptions during the presentation. To request to speak, you will need to use the raise hand feature, which we will cover shortly. Closed caption. WebEx has automatic system-generated closed captions available during the meeting. You'll click the CC icon in the lower left corner of the window to turn on closed caption. You can also use Control-Shift-A, and that will also turn on your closed captions. There are additional settings, so you may adjust the appearance of the captions if needed. Using WebEx mobile application, we'll want you to click the 3-dot icon, scroll down, and select Closed Captions option. Make sure the toggle switch is blue. Your video camera is off by default, and you will not be able to share your videos. Next slide. If you have questions during the presentation, send it via the Q&A feature. To send a question, click the 3-dot icon, the bottom right slide of the WebEx window, and select Q&A. A new panel or window will appear. In the Ask field, you'll just select all panelists. Click the text box to type your question and press the Enter key to send it. If you joined via browser or mobile app, just click the Q&A or question mark icon to access the Q&A and ask a question. And if you dialed in by phone, dial *3 to use the raised hand function, as this will indicate to the project team that you would like to speak and ask a question. If you do have a question or a comment that you would like to speak up about, please raise your hand. This indicates to the project team that you would like to speak. To virtually raise your hand, click the participants icon on the bottom right of the WebEx window, hover your cursor next to your name and click the raise hand icon. Alternatively, you may press the following keys on your keyboard. You can press the Control-Shift-R and that will raise your hand. And if you joined via browser or mobile app, click the 3-dot icon and select raise hand. If you dialed in by phone, dial *3 to use the raise hand feature. I do just want to remind you that we do have our ASL interpreter on the call tonight, and we ask that you please present your questions slowly and clearly, and that our presenters speak at your normal pace so that the interpreters may translate for you. And at this point, I'll turn this over. Let me go over the agenda very quickly. We will have the introductory video, which will follow this, and then DC Plug background will be shared. We'll talk about the existing system model. We'll also review the proposed underground system model, and we'll provide you with this project status and timeline update. We'll have the project scope and limits, the maintenance of traffic, your communication strategy, and then our contact information, and we'll open it up for question and answers. At this time, I'll turn this over to Peyton, who will play the next video for you.
The District of Columbia has experienced more violent storms in recent years, resulting in extensive power outages. For this reason, the District and Pepco are working to reduce power outages by moving many of the overhead power lines underground to improve the infrastructure and enhance resiliency. Neighborhoods affected by construction will be notified well in advance of the project start date. This will include the posting of no parking signs. Construction will begin with the coordination of streets and sidewalks impacted in your neighborhood. Signs will be posted, and flaggers will direct vehicles and pedestrians around construction crews. Before any digging begins, other existing utility lines that may be in the path of construction will be carefully identified and marked in the field. In some cases, small plants, trees, and grass will need to be removed from public spaces to allow for digging and placement of new underground equipment. But we will do our best to retain as much vegetation as possible. Any public property disturbed by this work will be restored to its original condition. Construction workers will use asphalt saws to cut the pavement. A backhoe will dig a trench for the placement of the distribution line. Periodically along the main primary line, manholes and tap holes will be required to house equipment and to provide access for inspections and repairs. The backhoe will also be utilized in these cases to excavate for these structures. In order to meet jurisdictional safety requirements, shoring will be provided in the trench to ensure stability. Pepco uses either fiberglass or plastic PVC conduit to protect underground power lines. Concrete will be poured into the trench to encase and secure the conduit, and steel plates will be placed over the trench temporarily to make the road usable to vehicle traffic. After the concrete is set, the steel plates will be removed and the trench will be repaved in sections. Transformers, switches, and other ancillary equipment will be set in place. Equipment such as transformers and switches will be installed either in the roadway or the sidewalk, depending on space availability. Underground cable will be installed. Landscaping will be restored as needed and roads paved. Overhead primary electric wires will be removed from poles, but secondary service and communication lines will remain. Finally, the new underground power lines will be energized. While electricity will remain on throughout the project, there will be a short scheduled outage needed to switch from the overhead lines to the new underground system. We appreciate your patience while the District and Pepco improve the future of electrical service for the District of Columbia residents.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mark for one of the senior project managers working with Pepco. So just to go through a brief background of DC Plug. So you can see the timeline starting in 2012 when the mayor's power line underground task force was established following severe storms that caused delayed outages. It was determined that a response to make power distribution more resilient would require a new investment. So this is when DDOT and Pepco proposed what then became the DC Plug Initiative, which then led to the approval of the three biennial plans to underground feeders. And you can also see more to the right, the budget, how it's split between Pepco and DDOT for the pricing. Next slide, please. So here you see an existing overhead system before DC Plug. So the overhead primary lines that go down can have a detrimental impact depending on which one goes down. In this case, you see the primary line going down leaves the entire subdivision without power. As you can see, most of the buildings are in red. Next slide, please. And now if you go to, this is the layout of the underground plan. After DC plug, if one primary line goes down, the impact of a fallen tree, for example, is drastically reduced, and outages that are experienced will be in small areas due to just one service or secondary line going down. So you can see the impact is very minimal. There's a lot less issues with the power line, and you only see a few buildings going to be without power. Next slide. Turn over to Caesar.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caesar, and I'll be going through the talking points of the current status and timeline for the project feeder in this presentation. We started with the project kickoff during February 2022. We had a 30% design submission around September 2022. We met with the council member on October 2022, and then we have joined the ANC meetings on December 2022 and February 2023. Since then, we had our 65% design submission on January 2023. We did an open house public meeting on March 15, and we are currently doing this open house design update today on May 15, 2024. We are expecting a 100% final submission of design on June during the summertime, and a final submission during the summer 2024. Next slide. For the construction timeline for the subject feeder, we have a civil construction start of spring 2025. We will have a civil construction completion in fall 2027. The electrical construction completion is in winter 2028. We do divide the work into civil and electrical. Civil means putting the infrastructure in place. Electrical means making sure that the whole electrical conduit, all the electrical work is being energized. The anticipated to be energized will be winter 2028. As part of the project scope, we do handle erosion and sediment control. In addition to that, we do installation of duct banks and electrical manholes, tap holes, and transformer enclosures. We refer to those as electrical structures, just in case. Roadway restoration once we finish, and we do pavement marking restorations as well, and then we do the electrical work, which we will begin following the civil construction. Some of the images that you see in the screen, starting with the top right-hand side, you can see a excavated trench and the installation of electrical conduit. On the bottom right side, you see the installation of a tap hole or a transformer enclosure. The structure is currently in the roadway on that one. And then at the end, you're going to see a finished product of what you see at the end, which is a tap hole, transformer enclosure, or manhole. On this picture is on the bottom left side, where it shows the structure already installed on the sidewalk and grass on the other side. Next slide, please. Much clearer images over here of what we do and the finishing touches of the finishing part of the work. On the top left side, you see a transformer enclosure located on the sidewalk section, basically on the grass zone. Next to it on the right side is a switch manhole. Basically, all you see is a manhole on the top. This located on the sidewalk. It can also be on the street, on the roadways. And then on the bottom, you see a tap hole. The bottom image shows a tap hole in the grass section of the sidewalk. And those are the finished products that you're going to see during the civil construction of the project. I'm going to turn it over to Jignis to explain the feeder 14767 maps and the actual changes that have happened during the design phase. Jignis?
Hey, thanks, Caesar. Hey, this is Jignesh. So I'm the lead engineer for this project from Pepco. And this is the original design that we published during the early stage of this project that we plan to install all the MacArthur Boulevard going down W Street and up to the Foxhole Road. So after the 65% design that we find out that that's on a Foxhole Road passing W Street going up north, it's so many other utilities in the ground, and that's limited space to install other structure on the roadway. And a new design has been implemented, leaving this section overhead from W Street going up Foxhole Road. Next slide, please. So this is our new design. It's coming out from a MacArthur Boulevard, coming down and right at the W Street, where there is automatic recloser. We're gonna tie to that. So it's gonna be on a pole, and everything else beyond that going down Foxhole Road and a little just south of W Street, we're gonna keep that portion overhead. Caesar?
Thank you, Jignes. I believe we can go to the next slide, please. As part of the civil construction phase of the work, we do have some maintenance of traffic during construction phase. This maintenance makes accessibility for residents and businesses. We will try to maintain the travel lanes as much as we can, and also the residents' pedestrian movement. Parking impact, you're going to see it at a minimum 72 hours in advance notices. The contractor is responsible to placing those, and you will know if you're impacted in your section, and the signs that will be posted will indicate the time frame of work in your zone, in your sections, in your neighborhood areas. We do provide safe accommodations for pedestrian and bicyclists during the construction phase, and the public outreach team will coordinate with residents and other stakeholders throughout the construction. I'm going to provide some examples of maintenance of traffic, and these are typical imagery that you can see of types of maintenance of traffic that we do during the construction. In the first image on the top, we are working on the left side of the road where you can see the work label as work zone with 10 feet. We do have a 2 feet drumming, what we call drum section or barrier section through the work zone, so nobody gets in there. Along it, we are maintaining a bike lane with the travel lane to one side of the street and then the opposite side. And then, of course, we implement the bike lane on the opposite side as well. On the bottom screen, we have a different scenario where we have a work zone on the right side, followed by the travel lanes, vehicular travel lanes, both opposite ways, one lane for each side. And then we maintain a parking space on the final left side of the road. This can also be implemented on the right side or opposite, vice versa. Next slide, please. One final typical maintenance of traffic. Sometimes we have work in the middle of the street or within. So when those time comes, we maintain a work zone in the middle of the street. We protect our construction workers and the contractors. We maintain the travel lanes passing on opposite sides of this work zone and maintaining a travel lane either on the left or right, depending on where it is and which zone of the neighborhood we are or which side is more impacted. One last imagery of a typical profile of how the travel lanes will look during construction or the traffic will look during construction. We do maintain the 2 travel lanes, one for each side, and also the work zone on the right side. Next slide. I believe I'll turn it over to Raisha.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Raisha Quarry, and I am with the communications team. My team and I provide the community outreach and engagement for the DC Plug projects across the city. So far, what we have coming up for DC Plug and Communications is next up we will have transformer enclosure meetings with those residents who will be living near a transformer enclosure that will be installed in the public space. So an outreach team member will knock on your doors or leave a package just showing you where the transformer enclosure will be located and leaving you some information about what it is and where it will be in relation to your homes. Once we get into the civil construction, we start to implement our education plan. The education plan basically just says that we have to do 30 days notification pre-construction, 15 days notification pre-construction, 7 days notification pre-construction, and then at 72 hours prior to construction, you guys will start to see those no parking signs posted, and that's how you definitely know we're coming. You will get resident letters as needed. Based off different things such as restoration coming to your street or again transformer enclosures coming near your homes during the civil construction as well. We do distribute the schedules regularly, so if you guys want to join our email list, a lot of you have, I appreciate that. Just go over to our website, dcpluginfo.com, click on feeder 14767, and there should be a button that says add to the list, and that button will get you an email over to me, and I will send it to the appropriate member of our team. Okay. We also send out traffic advisories that way as well, and we attend the ANC meetings regularly. So we have lots and lots of engagement during the civil construction, and a lot of this is done by a dedicated outreach team just for your community. Once we get into the electrical construction, we also do phone calls prior to construction because at that point you may lose power. Again, this is another phase and not everyone will. And then we still attend the ANC meetings regularly, and you will also get door-to-door notifications as well. Please use our 24-hour hotline number. The number is 844-758-4146, and you can always email us at questions@dcpluginfo.com. All right, that's it for me. Peyton?
Sorry, Ray, took a second to get off mute. Thank you, everybody. At this point, we're getting towards the end of our meeting. We will open it up to the Q&A, but first, I just wanted to point you in the direction of this Title VI survey. This is really helpful for us to kind of understand how best to hold these meetings and where we can improve. You'll be automatically redirected if you join from the WebEx app. To take this survey, it takes 1 to 2 minutes. If you wouldn't mind filling it out to us at the end, filling it out for us at the end, that'd be amazing. If you called in, you can still access this survey at tinyurl.com/title-vi-survey. So like I said, if you could just take a minute or two to fill out the survey, it'd be really helpful for us. But for now, we will jump into the Q&A section. Again, if you want to raise your hand and speak, you can raise your hand using the WebEx platform on the bottom right. If you called in, you can press *3 to talk, and then we will answer the questions as we get raised hands or as we get them in the chat. I do have a couple of questions for our team. The first one I got is, can you share the PowerPoint? I know my neighbors who couldn't attend but want to see this. And Phil, yes, we will share the PowerPoint on the project website. Just give us about 48 hours. dcpluginfo.com, go to the specific feeder, and this presentation will be on there. You can also watch it. I believe it's being recorded right now on Facebook Live. If you go to the District Department of Transportation's Facebook page, you can find it there, recorded as well as on YouTube at the District Department of Transportation's page. So I know that should answer your second question about it being recorded. Can you include the survey link in the chat? Yes, I will include it in the chat, but like I said as well, you will be automatically redirected. As soon as you hang up this call, it should pop up your web browser and send you to the survey, but I will copy that in there. The next question I have is, Hi, thank you for hosting this evening's meeting. I live off of Foxhall Road. Since that portion is staying above ground, will there be any benefit added to my home? I've had issues with outages through the years, although it hasn't been too bad lately. Happy to hear. So Pepco, I would probably pass that question to you, Jignesh or Mark.
Hey, thank you, Ashley, for the question. Yeah, we use the line on the Foxhole Road, and Pepco did install here and did the
Oh, hey,
will
hey, Jignesh.
yeah, I'm sorry. Do you hear me?
Jignesh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can hear you now though, so I don't know if it'll run smooth.
Okay. Yeah, just going to repeat what I just said. I'm sorry. And this Pepco did do the reliability improvement in the Foxhole Road area, that they installed quite a bit of tree wire, did a lot of tree trimming, and also that the automatic circuit recloser that we installed that helps alleviate all this outages.
Great, great, great. Okay, so there will be some improvement. Amazing. The next question I have is, will structures be installed outside of the roadway and front lawns? Some affected streets do not have sidewalks. Will there be any coordination with the residents about what ends up on their lawns, or will residents just be informed of a final design decision?
So this is Caesar from DDOT. All the work that is currently occurring during the civil construction will happen within the public space or the public right of way, which is the primary, what we call the primaries. That part of the public space belongs to DC government. So this is where we're establishing the work. Any type of work that is near a residence or in front of a residence or in the vicinity of residence is coordinated in mostly the installation of electrical structures such as transformer enclosures, tap holes, or manholes. The public outreach team during the design phase and construction always will be keeping you alerted of what's going on and what's going to happen.
Thank you, Caesar. So then were the timelines shared just for our feeder or the entire DC project? So the timeline that you saw was for this specific feeder. The design should be completed during the summer of 2024 or 2020. Yeah, 2024. Construction is anticipated to start, I believe it was spring of 2025. And then, Caesar, I think this is a similar question, but if a street does not currently have sidewalks, where will they be installed when the feeder work is done? Or will they be installed when the feeder work is done? Apologies.
Yeah, as mentioned, most of the work is done on the public space. Sometimes we go on the grass zone, on the curb. Sometimes we go on the roadway. It all depends where will best fit. We will keep it within the public space property, the DC government property.
If I could just real quick add to that answer, Caesar, this is James Gittens with DDOT PMC. The areas, there's no improvements outside of the electrical improvements to improve reliability. So where there is no existing sidewalk, new sidewalk will not be installed.
Thank you, Caesar and James. Okay, a question. Why are the two houses on Klingle Street just before 51st Street off of Arizona not included? And I can double back to the map so we can see.
Yeah.
Oh, you're referring to this gap right here in the map.
If I'm not mistaken, this area is supplied by multiple feeder. That I need to look at the actual design, but if I'm not mistaken, from my knowledge, that some portion of this area here That's why it's not included in right at that location.
Okay. Thank you, Jignesh. I'm sorry, I'm losing my spot as new ones come in. There are some very old trees in the neighborhood. What is being done to protect those trees, specifically beyond talking to the DC arborist?
This is Caesar. When it comes to trees, we maintain a tree protection. We analyze the current conditions of the trees, make sure that we are staying far away. We identify the roots, and we ensure that the design covers a zone that will not impact the tree. Since we're currently in the design phase, this is the status that we are at. During the construction phase, we identify primarily where the proposed structure is going to be placed and ensure that the trees will not be impacted.
Great, great. Thank you, Caesar. And then Katie, I see your question. I'm sorry, I missed the beginning. When is this likely to start? I think I touched on it a little bit, but just to reiterate, we're looking at civil construction, meaning the actual components going underground to start in spring of 2025, and that'll take about 2 years, a little over 2 years to be completed. It would be fall of 2027. And then after that, winter 2028 is when the actual power lines will be energized underground. Is there a more detailed map available that would show addresses?
If we go, this is Caesar, sorry. If you go to the dcpluginfo.com, there is a tab for an interactive map where you can zoom in to the limits of work and identified address, location, or more specific corridor. Apologies, this presentation, we just have a overglance limit of work.
I noticed Canal Road Northwest and Reservoir Road Northwest is not included on the feeder project. This area has had many power issues during storms. Jignesh, is that an area that you're familiar with?
Yeah, those areas supplied by the different feeder. And earlier we talked about the criteria of the feeder we selected, that we did not select that feeder based on the criteria, and this one was the worst performing feeder at that time. That's why it's not selected. And I think so, if I'm not mistaken, reliability group did a lot of work on that area and do the tree trimmings and all that. So it should be getting better, but it's so much tree area over there, that might be the issue that happens time to time.
Okay, great. And BP, I see your 4 questions, so let me go through them. Question number 2 was, can we object to any portion of what is planned? For example, the transformers buried on sidewalks near street trees. If so, what is that mechanism? How would I go about that?
Is this James? Do you want me to respond?
Yeah, James, I think you could take that one.
Okay. Yeah, the location of each feeder, as Jignesh kind of pointed out, was predetermined. It's been analyzed in terms of the entire Pepco system to determine which feeders required attention and which locations would get the improvements in terms of undergrounding the primary line. So that has been predetermined. To eliminate any portion of the system would create gaps, and we would lose the reliability intended for the overall functioning of the system. So it's not that direct specifically to your question about can you request that some of it be eliminated. More likely no, but however there may be opportunities to reconsider for one reason or another the location of a structure. And if in terms of how to go about that, as the public outreach team did mention, they will be contacting individuals where TEs will be located close to specific residences. So that would be the opportunity to kind of voice your concern. As well, you can also go on info or DC plug info and website and voice your concerns there, and that will make it back to the team.
Great. Thank you, James. The next question from BP. Why does the project stop on W Street Northwest between 49th and MacArthur? And Jignesh, I'll pass that to you, but I believe that's again related to the different feeders powering the neighborhood. Or no, go ahead.
No, that's the same feeder. We stopped at that location because of we needed to find the breakage point, and that's we have automatic circuit recloser on that pole right at that location. So we coming up to that pole and tying to that, and everything else beyond that staying overhead. That was the main reason we did look for location to go up. Otherwise, we had to install a couple of new poles and all that.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the correction. And then how would you plan to get power to homes if the lines are buried? Do they come up again on poles and then to the homes?
Okay, I will take that. If lines are already buried underground, that this has some portion underground it. So we will try to connect to existing underground line by installing the boxes around it on top of that or existing manhole. We will come to the existing manhole and tie to that and keep it underground.
Okay, and the next question is similar. Our home gets its power from the main line on MacArthur Boulevard. The line goes across MacArthur Boulevard to our home. If you're placing the main line below ground, how will the power be delivered to our home? Will that also be undergrounded?
This is James Giddens. Just want to clarify one point. There is a distinction between primary and secondary. The lines that power homes are from the secondary service. So where, if you're going down the street and you're looking up the pole and you see what looks like a gray bucket, those are transformers that take power from the primary lines and step it down to the secondary lines. The purpose of this program, DC Plug, is to underground the primary lines, the higher voltage lines. So the poles will remain, the secondary lines will remain on the poles and feed the houses. So the lines that are buried that we're putting in will come back to each pole where there was a transformer and go back up and feed power to the secondary lines. So the secondary lines and going to the homes would not be impacted as part of this program.
Great, thank you so much, James. And then is there any thought to remove abandoned wires from other utilities, telephones, and cable? Some utility poles have dozens of coiled or loose wire. It's very unattractive.
If it's other utility wire, Pepco's not allowed to touch those wires. They need to be removed by that particular utility.
Great, and I'm sorry, I'm noticing there are a few hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead and start unmuting people. Brian, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. We should be able to hear you. Uh-oh. I think you have to accept the request, and as soon as you do, we should be able to talk to you. Brian, I see you went on mute for a second. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next person with their hand raised. Brian, if you do still have a question, feel free to raise your hand again. I have a 202-686 number with their hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Calling user 14. Danica, I may need your help to get him unmuted. You may have to accept the unmute. Okay, I'm going to double back to you in a second. I have a hand raised from a 202-244 number. I'm going to go ahead and request to unmute you. Again, I think you have to accept, but let's see. Tanika, are you able
Yes,
to? Okay, perfect. I
yes.
can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you so much
Oh,
for joining
good.
me.
I have, I'm sitting next to a transformer, and you had mentioned that you had some concerns about houses next to transformers. I have a question. How near is too near?
Thank you.
This is James Giddens with the PMC. Yes, thank you for your question. There's no concerns necessarily with proximity to the transformers. Those transformers that you see on the poles, this project will remove those and place new transformers that are the style of being in the ground, underground, in a vault.
And so the original statement that you would stay away from houses that are too near is not valid then. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am. There may be someone may have misstated something, because there's no the purpose of this program is not to change the proximity of homes to transformers. They're generally safe structures. They have defaults in terms of power outages and such to avoid any catastrophic concerns. And the purpose of this program is to underline the lines, the primary lines at the top, to improve the reliability of the system, as well as the transformers themselves.
So you are saying then that this is not an issue.
Correct.
I see. Or it's not an issue for you. Is that what I'm to understand?
It's not an issue that I'm aware of, and maybe Pepco can chime in, but I don't believe that there's an issue in terms of proximity of homes to transformers.
I see. And will the posts, the poles, say what they are? Are there not some over the head wires that have to stay in place for various reasons? That's
Yes,
my
ma'am. Thank you for your
understanding.
question. Yeah, that's a great question. The poles will remain. It's just the lines at the very top that will be removed, and a portion of the pole itself will be cut down 4 or 5 feet of the top
Oh,
of the
I
pole.
see.
Right. But the
Yeah,
secondary lines, the Verizon, Comcast, all those lines will remain.
right. And sorry, if I can just ask one more quick question. You did say that your timeline is summer 2024. That's this year to finish the design, and you would start in the spring of 2025, and that would go on for 2 years. Am I correct? And then the final ending of all of this will not take place until 2028. I'm just checking here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question. You're correct. The design is supposed to end this year, and construction that will last for 2 years will begin in spring of next year, 2025. The entire program that is undergrounding power lines throughout the district does intend to conclude in 2028.
I see. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And ma'am, I'm going to put you back on mute. If you have another question, again, you can always hit the *3 button, and we will unmute you again. Going to go back to some of the questions that I have in the chat. Would this affect DDOT closing the sidewalk gaps across our community? And Phil, I assume you're speaking to what the other resident was earlier, where there's not gaps all over the project footprint, or there's not sidewalks all over the project footprint. Um, James or Caesar, I think this would be a good question for you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, the intent of the program is not to fix those concerns. We certainly can take those concerns to DDOT. If you and I would ask that you go on to the website and just put in there your concern, and we certainly can bring it up as well. But again, it's not part of this particular program.
Great. And then will the underground lines be placed on the same side of the street as they are currently sitting above?
Not necessarily. The challenge that we face by going underground is that there are a number of utilities underground. So we sometimes go from one side of the street to the other. But we do generally try to stay close to the curb to limit impacts during construction. But there are instances where we are actually out more in the middle of the street, and it'd be slightly more impact in terms of maintaining traffic, pedestrian and vehicular during construction.
Great. And then I'm confused about the new aftermap. Is it telling me that because of the crowding underground on Foxhall Road, that Garfield Street between Foxhall Road and 49th Street will no longer be a part of this project?
Essentially, the short answer is yes. It's that, as well as being that is such a narrow street, to make accommodations to be more, say, in the center of the road with some of this work. It would require detouring traffic for a number of months, if not just weeks, completely, around the city, around the area. As well, Pepco needs to, at points in the future, come to do maintenance on their system, and that then also just simple maintenance where they're parked on top of a manhole would require a detour and have a significant impact.
Great. Will the project replace street trees if they must be removed?
That's an excellent question. We do take that under consideration in our conversations with urban forestry. Um, we we try to limit any impact on any of the trees, but where we see that there's a need to, we do kind of have that conversation with UFD where are more desirable locations. And in times they'll say, this particular tree is already kind of too close to a driveway or to an intersection, or we plan to, remove that tree. And in some instances, we're lucky enough where we can kind of have that synergy where we can kind of support their program in terms of removing dead trees or trees that aren't desirable.
Thank you, James. Where overhead lines remain, will any electrical work be done in those areas to service or improve the power's reliability?
I will speak on Pepco's behalf in this regard. Pepco and Jignesh kind of touched on it earlier about the tree trimming. Pepco has, since this kind of program was initiated and there were major concerns about reliability, Pepco has stepped up their efforts to do regular tree trimming, and that has already had an impact on their system. So in those areas, they will continue to work on that and improve that aspect of their service.
Thank you so much, James. There are a couple more questions in the chat, but I do want to point out because somebody asked me to send it. I'm sending the survey in the chat. Like I said, you will be redirected at the end of the meeting. But if you would like to hop on now, you can. The link is in the chat. It's tinyurl.com/title VI-survey. Again, it's really helpful for us if you could take that survey when we're holding these meetings in the future. Your input is really valuable there. And then one other quick little housekeeping thing, call in user 14 202-686 Your hand is, I'm gonna lower your hand if you would like to ask a question. I know we tried to unmute you before, but just press *3 for me again, and we'll work on getting you unmuted. And then, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where I was. Is there any plan to bury the secondary lines in the future?
No.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Short answer, no. There's no current plans for that.
Feedback for Pepco. The current DC plug interactive map does not match the latest 14767 project map shared in this presentation. When will this be updated?
Hi, I can answer that. This is Raisha Kwari with DC Plug Communications. We are currently working on our website update right now on a whole redesign. I'll make sure that that gets done within the next 48 hours. So we'll update that map that's on the website.
Great, thank you, Raisha. And like I said, this presentation will also be going up on the website. If you wouldn't mind just giving us to the end of the week. If you do have any neighbors that would like to watch it before then, you can find it on DDOT's Facebook page or DDOT's YouTube page. It will live on both of those as well as the project website, but we'll just need a couple days to upload it there. At the moment, I'm not seeing any more questions. I believe I covered them all. And if anybody has any questions, again, you can of course raise your hand or send them in the chat or Q&A box. If you're on the phone, you can raise your hand using *3. If you're on the WebEx platform, you can press the raise your hand icon. It should be on the bottom right of your screen or within the 3 dots if you're using an app. I'll give it another minute or so to make sure no other questions come through. But I did want to highlight that I really appreciate everybody for joining this evening's meeting. We're excited to bring these improvements to the neighborhood and bearing with us through the construction once it starts and as we finish up the design process. Thank you, LA. I really appreciate you for joining as well. Okay, I do have a hand raised. 202-686. I'm going to try to unmute you. Danica, I don't know if it's something that you need to do. I don't know how we got the last one off, but you may have to confirm by pressing a button, 202-686. I believe I sent the request for you to unmute, but I'm not getting you yet. Danica, are you able to do anything differently than I am? You're still here.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. Do you know what they pressed to accept off the top of your head?
No.
Okay. Okay, not a problem. Well, for the call-in user, if you wouldn't mind, because we can't get you off mute for whatever reason, I've requested the unmute. You can maybe send us an email. Maybe the best route, or you can call the project hotline at 1-844-758-4146. And again, I know you're on your phone, so you're not seeing this, so I'll read off the website, email, and number. The project website is www.dcpluginfo.com. The project email is questions@dcpluginfo.com. The project's phone number is hotline, is 24-hour hotline. If you could bring your question to us, is 1-844-758-4146. And all of that information should be on the flyers that you received, wherever you received it, or signs in the area. So please reach out to us. I'm sorry we couldn't get you off mute, but I would love to hear your question and make sure that we're answering any comments or concerns that you have. Phil, thank you for joining. Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and end the presentation. I really appreciate you all for joining. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on the project email, questions@dcpluginfo.com. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.